safely streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
How many more than 50? How many are here because you support the Constitution? Raise your hand. Keep your hands up. Turn around to the person next and high five every person. I want you to high five everybody because every single one of you deserves it. You know what made America great. Okay, now, pink pistol's very simple. Self-defense is a human right. It crosses the political, social, cultural line. So the Second Amendment is everybody's amendment. And it's more than just our self-defense. It is protection of our great country. Okay, now, to me, we have to define what is an American is. And I'll tell you what an American is. An American is someone who believes in the values espoused in the Declaration of Independence, that we're all created equal, that we have inalienable rights given to us by God, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. If you believe in those, then you are an American. How many Americans do we have in here? Unfortunately, there's another creature. Those are people that were born here, but they're hostile to American rights. And I call them Americans in name only, or ANOs. And we got a whole bunch of running our offices, don't we? So there's the worst kind of ANO. There's the one that's called the nanny authoritarian statist idiot. The ANO Nazis. And we got a whole building full of them here and in Washington. Now, we hear a lot about the Second Amendment, so let's talk about the Second Amendment. What does it say? It says, boy, I'm going blank here.
Right behind you.
Okay. A well-regulated militia being necessary to secure a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, right to keep and bear arms, that's pretty self-evident, isn't it? How about that part, that shall not be infringed? Yeah, we have 20,000 laws plus infringing our rights, don't we? Okay, would you guys like me to tell you how that happened? No, seriously, how many of you people here know how that happened? Okay, so I'd like to take you a few minutes to give you a little short layman's history that isn't being taught in our schools to our children. Okay, when America was founded, our country was the federal government was very small, the states were sovereign. The whole Bill of Rights, it applied to the federal government, and that part about not being infringed, it applied to the federal government strongly, as well as the rest of the Bill of Rights, but it didn't apply to the states, local governments. And that's something that's not being taught, because you see, all the states were literally sovereign states, so the whole federal Bill of Rights did not apply to the states. That's how we got the gun control laws on the local and state level in the first place. So I'm going to run you through some history really quick. 1791, Constitution is passed, we get the Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights is a chain on the federal government. Fast forward, we had this thing in the mid-1860s called the American Civil War. Some of you might have heard of it. Depending on what part of the country you're from, you might call it the war between the states or the war of northern aggression. Okay, after the Civil War was over, we had some amendments passed. The 13th Amendment, which freed the slaves. The southern states reacted by creating what's called the Black Codes. And the first thing they did was they stripped the newly freed slaves of their gun rights. Because once they stripped them of their gun rights, they could strip them of all their rights. Gun control started with racism. Anybody who supports gun control is a racist. 14th Amendment, which was ratified in 1868, there was much debate about it. But one of the core things that they wanted to give back to the newly freedmen was their right to keep and bear arms, because that was the only way they could protect themselves from corrupt local politicians and men who rode on horses with white hoods. Yeah, well, you know, we're gonna get it. We gotta be nice to some people. Some people here are Democrats, so I'm not gonna be name calling. A little bit. Okay, well anyways, 1868 we get the 14th Amendment. There were two key provisions of the 14th Amendment relating to our civil rights, the due process clause and the Privileges and Immunities clause. Basically, the 14th Amendment was written to turn the Dred Scott decision of the Supreme Court on its head. That's what was done. However, the Supreme Court in 1873 and 1876 gutted the 14th Amendment with the Slaughterhouse and Cruikshank cases. So effectively, we were back to square one, except of course the states were no longer sovereign. Fast forward to 1934. How many of you heard of the National Firearms Act? Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, how did they get that through? Now, even though the Second Amendment didn't apply to the states, it damn well applied to the federal government. And the way they got around it is they created a tax. So what the National Firearms Act did was they tried to tax guns out of existence. And the original draft of the National Firearms Act actually included handguns. It wasn't just machine guns, it wasn't just short barrel rifles and shotguns. It was they were trying to go for almost everything. They backed off on the handguns for a little bit. Okay, 1939, some of you may have heard about the Miller case. Well, the Miller case was a set case. It was a one-sided case argued by the government and was designed to kill the Second Amendment. Okay, fortunately for us, the justice who wrote the case was known to be lazy and not that great, so he left a lot of holes in it. So, after 1939, we had no Second Amendment rights on a federal level. We could not bring anything into courts to protect our Second Amendment rights. Fast forward to 1941. There was a court decision dealing with the Commerce Clause. How many of you know what the Commerce Clause is? Okay, let me give you a quick little thing. The Commerce Clause is the key to getting our freedom from federal tyranny. Would you like me to explain? Would you like to know how this works? Okay, originally the Commerce Clause was designed to promote interstate commerce between the states. What happened during the Franklin Delano Roosevelt is that his bought and paid for Supreme Court got this case called Wickard versus Filburn. Now, Filburn was the Secretary of Agriculture and Wickard was a farmer. The farmer was doing something really despicable. Let me tell you what he was doing. He was growing wheat on his own land to feed his cows. Can you believe that? How dare he does that? And the Secretary of Agriculture dragged him into the Supreme Court and said, you can't grow food on your own land to feed your own animals, because if you do that, then you don't have to buy wheat from the commercial market, and if everybody did that, that would have a negative impact on the price of wheat and stuff, and that would negatively affect interstate commerce. And so I'm serious, I know it sounds insane, but that's the ruling. And what that did is the federal government, after that ruling, said that everything we do in our life is some form of interstate commerce, and that is how they got jurisdiction on our lives. Does that sound like crap or what? Yeah. Okay, so now we fast forward. Okay, the states and all these are passing all these laws. We have no redress in the courts. However, something happened alongside on the 14th Amendment. A lot of people started attacking those Supreme Court rulings, and they chipped away. And the Supreme Court came up with a term called selective incorporation, where they would apply the Bill of Rights to us, but not the whole Bill of Rights, one case at a time. It's kind of like being a little bit pregnant. Well, anyway, come fast forward into around 2005. Any of you ever hear of the Cato Institute? Yeah. Good. Anybody of you here ever hear of a gentleman named Robert Levy? Okay, well, let me tell you who Robert Levy is. Robert Levy is a retired lawyer who funded the Heller case. How many of you know what the Heller case is? Okay, he funded Alan Gura, and Alan Gura attacked the Washington, D.C. handgun ban, went to the Supreme Court, and he won. Okay, The Heller case was a very narrow, tailored case. It seeked the following objectives. One, establish that the Second Amendment was an individual right. He got that. Number two, that common arms can't be just broadly banned. He got that. Number three, you have a right to have functional firearms for self-defense in your home. He got that. And let's define functional. Functional is loaded. That is functional. Okay, I would even go as far as to say that functional is a firearm with standard magazine capacities. Now, to be honest with you, the Heller ruling could have been much more narrow than it is. But Justice Scalia, to his credit, decided to do the first full-on historical analysis. And he gave us a lot. But what he didn't give us was incorporation. He alluded to it, but didn't give it to us. And we wound up with split circuits. Believe it or not, the Ninth Circuit actually got it right. Can you believe that? The Seventh didn't, and we got the McDonald case and was incorporated in 2010. So now we have federal rights to sue in federal court, and that's through the efforts of the Cato Institute, Alan Gura, Second Amendment Foundation, the Cal Guns Foundation, and other allies of the Second Amendment Foundation, the real leaders of the legal front, and they're running a multi-state strategy, multi-court districts, is the Second Amendment Foundation. How many of you are here from Sacramento County? Okay, a couple. Now, in case you don't know, no one told you, in Sacramento County, we filed a joint lawsuit was filed on CCW permits. Second Amendment Foundation, Cal Guns Foundation, and my Sacramento coordinator, Dina Sykes, was the lead plaintiff of the case. Sacramento settled out of court, so Sacramento is now shall issue for those of you on CCW permits. How's that? Okay, and I got news for you. I went up to the hearings up at the federal court, the appeal hearings on the Peruta case and now the Richards case in Sacramento settled. Fortunately, we had two counties in yellows, and since I'm being stupid, so Alan Gura white, you know, what can I say? Anyway, the court hearings went extremely well. The lower courts are in rebellion. They're fighting tooth and nail. They have been since Heller. But cases are making their way. Now, this is something I really want to get into. In the court of law, you can make facts. Okay? That's where we have court of law. We can make facts. The problem is there's another court. It's called the court of public opinion. And the court of public opinion does not operate on facts. It operates on emotion. Okay? This is planet Earth. It's not planet Vulcan. We're humans. Okay, humans react to emotional arguments 24 times stronger than logical ones. So how many of you try to talk with family and friends and you're talking facts and everything about why we, our gun rights? How many of you feel like you're beating your head? You're beating your head because in spite of the fact we got more guns, less crime, in spite of the fact that the places with the highest crime rates are the places with the most restriction of guns, they don't hear that because they're getting pounded with emotional arguments. Anytime I hear an attack on our rights, it always starts, we got to do this to protect the children. Okay, anytime you feel an attack on your rights, you're always going to say, we got to do this to protect the children. Doesn't always start off that way. Now, we want to hit them about protecting the children. We had this tragedy. It happened in Newton, Connecticut, and we got 20 dead children. Okay? We got 20 dead children, and somehow it's our fault. It's not our fault. You know whose fault it is? Okay, well, there's a lot of blame to go around on this one. Okay, let's talk about these mass shooters. Do you think we got profiles on them? Of course we got profiles on them. How many? Almost all of them are on psychotropic drugs. Almost all of them got emotional disorders. Do you hear Congress talking about investigating the pharmacy companies? Oh no, that's where the blame is at. Do you hear? How many of you ever heard of a guy named Tony Robbins? Okay, well, let me tell you something. Tony knows humans like nobody else. He got me to walk across hot coals, so the guy's good. Okay? It was, I'll tell you something, I'd do it again too. Tony says that humans crave significance, and what we're dealing with these mass shooters are people who are total losers. So the way they get significance, the quickest way is through violence. And if you've got yourself a media who's going to plaster your name, okay, your agenda, all over, the quickest way to get significance, to become somebody, to go down to history, is to do a mass shooting. Okay, the media is responsible. They know this. It is, they have blood on their hands. Now, how many of you have ever got the question from your friends, why do you need an assault rifle? Why do you need, how many of you got that question? Yeah, well, let me tell you something. When someone asks you a question, why do you need to do something? They've already made up their mind that you don't need it. Okay, so that's not the answer you need to give them why you need to do something. As free people, we don't have to justify anything we do. It is up to the government to show a compelling reason why we should be prohibited. Now, as far as this gun prohibition, well, let me tell you something. Okay, how many of you have heard of 3D printers? How many of you have heard of CNC machines? Okay, now tell me, did the alcohol prohibition work? Well, how did that work? Okay, how's our drug war working? Yeah, 85% of Americans polled say the drug war is a complete failure. Okay, we got 2 states that for outright legalization of marijuana. Okay, the drug war is a failure, alcohol prohibition was a failure, create massive black markets, and if we ban guns, there will be black market guns. Black markets always go to the absolute worst product. How would you like your criminals to be armed with full automatic machine pistols? Because that's what they'll be armed with, and we'll be left helpless. Would you agree? So that's that sort of thing. Prohibition does not work. But we have to say what will work. We have to come out. The other side, how many of you saw that Demand a Plan video put up from the Mayors Against Illegal Guns? Yeah. How many of you saw the Hollywood Hypocrites? Wasn't that great? Okay, let's put, how many of you heard of Rahm Emanuel? Now, Rahm Emanuel has a saying. He says, never let a crisis go to waste. And that's what they're doing. Okay? And the real issue on the Second Amendment isn't just our guns. Okay? The Second Amendment is, it's more than freedom. We're talking about our republic. We're talking about protecting our republic. Our republic is on critical life support. And if we lose our guns, we lose our republic. And if we lose our republic, we go from being free citizens to being subjects. Okay, so we got to do this. I'm going to wrap up here. I get fired up. But freedom, thank you for being here. God bless all of you.